People in the national media are starting to really doubt the Georgia Bulldogs. Is it justified? Is my question. And what they're pointing towards is a lot of turnover. I've heard people have doubt in Gunnar Stockton, right? Georgia's likely QB1. Doubt that some of the problems from last season are going to get fixed. And it just seems like people are not taking Georgia quite as seriously as maybe some of these other contenders. I have a few things to say about that. People are entitled to their opinion. I have my doubts about Georgia, and I'll add in what I really think about this team now that I've seen them play a G-Day. Ryan Curley from Dawg posts, is it too early to place a cloud of doubt over the Dogs? I think about last year, there was just as much excitement about Georgia as pretty much any program, maybe outside of Ohio State. Ohio State was the best team last year, definitely the most talented team. They go on to win the national championship like most predicted before the season even got started, so that happened. This year, I don't see, Ohio State's up there in odds, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Georgia, Tennessee was. But, it's not like last season. It's not like last year or Georgia in 2021 and 2022. Michigan, obviously, high odds in 2023. It's not really like that. To me, it's a little bit more open this season. And I think that some of these problems that people are pointing out about Georgia, I think you can point them out about Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, all of these teams. They're losing a lot of production. I've talked about that. I will hit on some of that a little bit during this video. But Josh Pate, Paul Feinbaum, all these guys starting to, as I think Pate put it, sell on Georgia. Why now? Why now? Why right around spring? Why right around G-Day is everyone starting to really put their doubt? Did they not like what they saw at Georgia's spring game? Did they not like what they heard about Georgia during spring practice? Here's the way I look at it. If we break this down group by group, we'll start with the coaches. Coaches pretty much the same. They brought in some guys to help with the running game. Okay, that's the same. Well, it's a coaching staff that had its arguably best job, and Kirby would say its best job a year ago by willing the Georgia Bulldogs to an SEC championship. So you look at that as a plus, especially when you have a Kirby Smart on board, right? Quarterback, jury's out to me on whether it'll be an improved or not situation. My honest opinion, Gunnar Stockton isn't as good as Carson Beck. Now, he could have a really good year. He could have a better year than Beck did in 2024, like David Pollack alluded to recently. But I don't think he has as talented as his arm. There are other things that he does better than Carson. He's a better runner. You can argue he's grittier. You can argue that the team chemistry is there more. But I don't know that he's as talented as a QB. It's TBD on that for me. And I've been watching Gunnar for a long time. He is a gamer, and that is a part of it. Running back, you lose ETN. Did the situation get better? I don't know. They also lost Branson Robinson. Not that he was helping that much, but does Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, Bo Walker, Dwight Phillips Jr., Roger Robinson, right? Does that group get better? I'd like to think that because that's what it seems like, but I don't know. Tight end, the same. Offensive line, a lot different and kind of a question mark because Georgia had notable names on its offensive line last season, but yet it didn't really perform that way. It didn't perform like it had two All-Americans on it. In fact, I was a little surprised, right? And it didn't perform like they're going to have 3-4 offensive linemen drafted in the NFL draft next week. That's not really what it was. So does it get better this season? Wide receiver. That's the one on offense where you point to and you're kind of confident. Yeah, I think that this situation is better than last year, right? When you bring in a Zachariah Branch and a Noah Thomas, you get Kobe Young back. You got plenty of depth at that position and certainly plenty of talent. You got guys that have been around the program for a long time in Dylan Bell. You've got young players that are emerging like Sakovi White. So that's the one position group on offense where you say, hey, I think this got better. But when you look at that whole offense as a whole and you think about it in the context of what it was in 2024, is it better than an offense that was putting up around 32 points per game, was struggling to get things going in a lot of games? Kind of what I saw on Saturday at G-Day. I understand some of the doubt, and I get it. But when I look at the rest of the country's offenses, where teams are high on odds, obviously Tennessee just lost Nico Iamaleava. They lost Dylan Sampson. They lost a couple of receivers. They lost some offensive linemen. There's a lot of turnover there up in Knoxville. Go to Oregon, new quarterback, new receivers, right? They got some returning in that position, a couple of new offensive linemen. There's changes on offense. Texas, you lose a couple of offensive linemen. You're switching over from Quinn Ewers to Arch Manning. Most people think that's a good thing. I tend to agree. You lose Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. You got Ryan Wingo coming in. You lose tight end Gunnar Helm. So, Texas has got its fair share of turnover. Penn State, they kept a lot of their offense together, especially Drew Aller and those running backs. But you lose Tyler Warren, so it's not like they're not losing an integral piece of what made them really good during the 2024 season. Ohio State, obviously, losing Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. These are guys that are going to be first, second round running backs here next week. It's a big deal to lose that. It's a big deal to lose a couple offensive linemen. It's a big deal to lose Emeka Buka, who is, one of the better, a guy that was around for a long time and is up in the record books for Ohio State and was the quintessential wide receiver too. They've got plenty to reload at. They're changing at quarterback. Maybe that can get better. So, like I said, you look around and these offenses are changing a lot. And so I don't know if you're looking at it in terms of offense, all those teams I'm talking about outside of Penn State are dealing with a new quarterback, and all of them are getting more hype than Gunnar Stockton. That's fine. I'm not here to necessarily defend Gunnar Stockton there, but he's got a little bit more experience than some of them when you think about dealing with the SEC Championship, dealing with the Sugar Bowl. He's been around for a few years, so he's got a leg up in terms of the experience and experience within a program. Now, flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. People are doubting Georgia there. Why? Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, Chaz Chambliss, Malachi Stark, Smile Mondin, Dan Jackson, Warren Britt. They lost a lot. A lot of guys that were contributors to national championships. A lot of guys who are taking most of the production on Georgia's defense away with them to the next level. Over 75% of the sack defense, over 50% of the tackling and the snaps. And there are large question marks in my book about Georgia, particularly in the front seven, and is Georgia going to have a legitimate pass rush when you already were getting a little worse at that, and then you lose Jalen Walker and Michael Williams and Chaz Chambliss and Tyrion Ingham-Dawkins and Damon Wilson in the transfer portal. That's tough. Now other teams are losing big pieces on defense. Oregon's losing a couple. Texas losing the two best guys in their secondary to the draft. Penn State, losing Abdul Carter. Ohio State losing a few guys. So, like I said, you go around the country and everyone's in a similar situation in terms of that because there's so much turnover in college football nowadays. And this just happens to be a big transition year for a lot of the top dogs. And maybe that's going to be every single year. But no, I don't know who's going to be the best players on the front seven for Georgia. Obviously, I know the linebackers are going to be good, but I didn't see anything in the G-Day where I said, whoa, he's a problem in terms of the defensive line. I just didn't. And that's fine. It was one day. Maybe that was one day. There were 14, 15 other practices where I didn't really get to see much at all. So there could be a case for some of those guys being really, really good, and I just don't know about it. I do think there's plenty of talent between Jordan Hall, Christian Miller, Elijah Griffin, Agboko, right? There are guys, but they're unproven, and we don't know how good they really are going to be. It's not like heading into last year where you knew you had Jalen Walker. It wasn't like they were just surprised good juniors. They're players that contributed as freshmen. You knew you had Jalen Walker. You knew you had Michael Williams. Chaz Chambliss had been starting for years. There weren't question marks there. So I get it. With a Georgia defense and a Kirby Smart defense that's consistently been pretty good, now didn't have as good as the season last year, I don't look at it and say this defense is going to be better. It's hard for me to say that. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it's going to be better. So I sit here and I wonder, do I defend Georgia? But I understand where there's doubt. What I'm saying to you is don't worry about that too much, especially if you're a Georgia fan on here, because the other teams have questions and holes to fill as well, and I don't think they're necessarily in a better spot than the Dogs. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you for watching.